One of Donald Trump's biggest campaign boasts is disintegrating before our eyes, and with it, the patience of the American people. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. For more than 2 years, the war in Ukraine has dominated world affairs. Russia invaded the nation in 2022, and the fighting has not stopped since. In that time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emerged as an international icon of resistance and democracy, while Russian President Vladimir Putin looks more and more like an ineffectual despot. Which should sound familiar to anyone currently watching American politics too. While running for re-election, Donald Trump claimed the war would have never started if he was president in 2022 and vowed to end it immediately, no matter what the cost.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, that is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. And it will take me no longer than 1 day. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in 1 day, 24 hours.
He reiterated that sentiment upon entering the White House.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that. No, Marco is right in saying it. We want to see it end.
Notice how Trump there doesn't say anything about Russia withdrawing, security guarantees for Ukraine, Ukraine joining NATO, Russia paying any kind of reparations for starting the war, or Ukraine regaining lost territory. Of course, that's because he doesn't really care about Ukraine. He only cares about pleasing Vladimir Putin. Which begs the question again, what does Putin have on Trump? For theories, some of which are golden, see our other videos here on the channel. Back to Ukraine. Trump's drunkard Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has also signaled that the administration cared more about ending the war no matter what the cost, rather than protecting the victim nation.
Must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering. A durable, Mr. Secretary, a critical moment. As the war approaches its 3rd anniversary, our message is clear. The bloodshed must stop, and this war must end.
So, now with Trump's 100 days in office benchmark approaching, it's time to point out that the war Trump promised to end on his first day in office still isn't over. In fact, the one ceasefire he boasted of brokering, in which Ukraine and Russia vowed to stop attacking critical infrastructure, lasted only hours before Russia violated it. Now it seems reality is setting in for Trump and for his cabinet. Speaking on an airfield on his way to meet with French President Emmanuel Macron, Secretary of State Marco Rubio had this to say.
So we came here yesterday to sort of begin to talk about more specific outlines of what it might take to end the war, to try to figure out very soon, and I'm talking about a matter of days, not a matter of weeks, whether or not this is the war that can be ended. If it can, we're prepared to do whatever we can to facilitate that and make sure that it happens, that it ends in a durable and just way. If it's not possible, if we're so far apart that this is not going to happen, then I think the president's probably at a point where he's going to say, well, we're done. You know, we'll do what we can on the margins. We'll be ready to help whenever you're ready to have peace. But we're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end. So we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well.
So, what happened to day one? Any idea? It turns out governing is hard, isn't it, Marco? So whatever will you do? If we had to speculate, I would say Putin is playing Trump and Rubio yet again. Putin hopes that by stalling peace talks he's embarrassing Trump, which he is. But more importantly, Putin is betting on the US withdrawing all aid and abandoning Ukraine to Russia's whims. But that thinking also looks like it will backfire. While Putin has been manipulating Trump and Rubio, Europe and the rest of NATO have been regrouping, developing their own plans to oppose Russian aggression. Worse for Putin, if the US does totally leave Ukraine in the lurch, that will inspire European nations to start sending troops to Ukraine. At which point, the conflict will have reached a dangerous point of escalation, but no matter how megalomaniacal Putin is, he probably would want to avoid a global conflict. His regime is already hanging by a thread in Russia. The Ukraine war is his major bid to stay in power. If it fails, what will become of good old Vladimir? Regardless, the situation will mark yet another major failure of the Trump administration, which is still technically in its infancy. Maybe part of the peace talks could be that we remove Trump and Russia removes Putin? Or maybe we could just toss Trump out with the trash. Either way. We'll keep you updated on this story as it continues to develop. I'm David Reddish.